Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Client Experience webinar on exploring the use of AI in in-house legal functions. As you know, our Client Experience program is focused on bringing you practical insights on some of the most topical issues facing you and your legal team. We are very excited to be back with you all again for our first session of 2025. It is also our most popular session of the series so far. In a 2024 Thomson Reuters survey of general counsel and in-house legal team members, over 2/3, that's 67% of all respondents, stated that they are confident and ready to try new technology. I think this statistics perfectly sums up the appetite and openness of all in-house legal teams to fully leverage the AI opportunity we are going to explore with you all today. So let's get started. As always, these sessions are all about you. We're really keen for you to get the most value from the session in terms of practical takeaways. So please do make use of the chat and messaging functions as we work through today's discussion. So without further ado, I'm excited to hand you over to my colleague, Rowena Rex, who will introduce you to the team and lead you through today's session.
Thanks very much, Natalie, and welcome everyone. We're really excited to be with you today. We've got lots of content to get through, so I will do a quick intro and then hand over to Bora, and then we'll get started on the agenda. So I joined Dentons just over a year ago as the Head of Innovation and AI, so I lead our AI initiatives across the UK, Ireland and Middle East region. Formerly a litigator doing regulatory work and data protection advice, and I've been in legal operations and digital transformation for over 20 years now. I'll hand over to Bora and then we'll go through the agenda. Thanks.
Thanks, Rowena, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm Bora Özer, and I'm the Data Science and AI Governance Lead at Dentons, covering the UK, Ireland, and Middle East. And over the past 15 years, I had the privilege of leading and delivering more than 40 data science and AI projects across diverse sectors, including healthcare, energy, finance, and legal. And my experience also spans working with organizations of various sizes and cultures, such as startups, government, industry, consultancy, each with its own unique data and technology challenges. At Dentons, I lead a team focused on developing data science solutions that enhance legal services and streamline operations. And AI plays a significant role in this work, and with that, AI governance is equally critical. So one of the key tasks here is also ensuring AI is a tool for progress and value rather than source of a risk. And I look forward to sharing my insights with you today. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Bora. And just a reminder to everyone, if you wouldn't mind going on mute during the session, that would be great. Thank you. So for today's agenda, we're going to take a look at AI maturity, so some considerations around where you are in your organisation, and then more broadly what we're seeing in terms of the industry trends. We'll look at some resources and support, regardless of which stage you might be at. We've got plenty of resources on our websites, and my colleagues will share some further information on that. We're also looking at, given the time of year, what's going to happen in 2025. We're being very careful not to make too many predictions, given the pace of change in this area, but there are some things that we're expecting to see happen this year, and that we're looking forward to. We'll then go through a list of some key advice and some key takeaways for you today, which we hope will be practical and pragmatic, regardless of where you are in terms of your experience of AI and your organisation's maturity, based on the needs of the particular industry or sector that you're in. So we've got 2 checklists that we'll be sharing towards the end of the session and also afterwards within our resource packs. So in terms of the AI maturity piece, this is a Thomson Reuters article, an infographic there, and actually was published just under a year ago. So quite interesting for us to spend a bit of time just reflecting on where we are as an industry within what they've described as these overlapping waves of transformation. I think from an industry perspective, we're certainly seeing still some activity in wave 1 certainly pressure in terms of using the products and tools that are out there, starting to think about the efficiencies and the return on investment for some of the products that have been procured so far. I wouldn't say we're starting to see the reduction in graduate intakes and paralegals, but that's certainly something that everybody will be working, keep an eye on in terms of workforce dynamics. In terms of wave 2, we are, again, not seeing a huge amount of activity in that wave, but certainly starting to see some real activity in terms of the products that people are using, and certainly you'll hear today from some of your peers on how they're making some real progress with some of those products. In terms of wave 3, that's obviously predicted for more towards the 10-year time horizon, but I would actually say we have seen the explosion of legal DIY and AI-led new entrants certainly now. So that's something that's happening a lot faster than was anticipated by this report. So really keen to sort of get a sense of where everybody is, and just encourage that thought around where are you now, but also where do you need to be or want to be as an organisation, and that will be different depending on the particular needs of your business and of course your industry.
Hello everyone, it's lovely to be with you today. So as Rowena said, we love to start these sessions with where you are. So we have 2 poll questions, hopefully up on your screens right now. So we're keeping everybody busy straight away. The first one is to really get a sense of where you feel you are on the path to AI maturity. And we've given just a simple scale to give us a simple indicator, if you like. We will share the results as always with you all. And obviously that's really, it's really nice to be able to benchmark where everyone else on the call is also feeling they are on that maturity scale. If you scroll down on the poll, don't miss the second question. The second one, you just heard from Rowena Thomson Reuters' view on the future. We'd like to get your sense of how you see that mapping out. So we've taken a short to medium 2 to 5 year view on this, and we'd love to get your sense. This is a multi-select, so you can choose the ones that probably most appeal to you in terms of where you see the future direction. Lots of people getting involved. We're going to just give a few more seconds. So there's lots of different views being shared, which is always great to see. We're going to give it a few more seconds. We'll do a short countdown. So hit the buzzers quickly. Let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're doing a quick count. Yes, and they're shooting up, so everybody is keen to share views, which is really nice to see. I am going to end the poll and we'll share the results with you all. Okay, so exactly consistent. So this is the second running of this session. We ran it on the other side of the world, if you like, this morning, and it is super consistent. So this morning we also saw 61% feeling that they are in the ad hoc experimentation approach to AI. 18% feel like they're learning fast with a structured plan. That compares to 23% this morning. So just a slight difference there, which is really interesting. I know Rowena and Bora will be excited to see these views. And in terms of the outlook, very consistent as well with this morning. So legal AI will transform work practices and businesses will demand AI-driven efficiencies. So back to you, Rowena, with those views from everybody.
Thanks very much, Niamh. And to everyone who participated in that poll. I think it's really interesting to reflect on sort of where people are on this journey, and there's clearly a lot of activity going on in your organisations. I think in terms of resources and support, obviously there's a wealth of information that we have available, but I just wanted to flag up front that this session will not be going into the basics of AI, and we will define AI just to frame it for the purposes of this session, but this is not a sort of AI 101 session. We do have those, and if you need them for your organizations, then please do get in touch. But I can see from the poll that a lot of you are quite a long way on this journey already. So perhaps don't need that today. In terms of other reports, so we've cited two just there, the Laws of AI Traction. That was a survey that we conducted across UK, Ireland and Middle East. And that actually took some similar temperature checks around where people are up to in their journey and what they're looking to achieve. And then that report sets out a key sort of action plan to support organisations in moving towards leveraging AI, but doing so within an effective governance framework, which is of course important. And we will touch on elements of that today as we go through the slides, and you'll hear from Bora in the presentation later around some of those considerations, but much more on the practical side than necessarily the specific legal elements, which you would get elsewhere, and also from my colleagues who've contributed to the Global Trends Report, which is another resource that's available. And so that's pulling together the expertise of my colleagues across all the other regions, as well as UK, Ireland and Middle East, where we've got that cross-disciplinary team in various jurisdictions, looking at the evolving trends in terms of the governance that's emerging, and we expect to see that settling a little bit more in 2025, but it's still obviously a very fast-moving area, and we'll talk about that a little later on as well. So I foolishly made some predictions for 2025. Because I say foolish because this space is moving so quickly. So I snuck in a couple of hopes into my predictions. As we've said, we really anticipate that there'll be some alignment happening in terms of compliance and the regulatory space, but still very much in flux, and that will of course depend on where you're joining us from in terms of your jurisdiction and what's happening there. We expect that disputes will continue to rise, as we've seen, and perhaps some of you will be involved in some of those. We think that the Gen AI chatbots will become ubiquitous. I think we're seeing that already. And of course, Copilot is now becoming pretty standard for those who are on a Microsoft stack. And we expect to see a further development of that over the next year. The environmental impact is definitely a hope of mine and not necessarily a prediction, but to the extent that we can influence these things, it's really important for us in terms of how we approach things to be proportionate in the products that we're using and make sure that we are leveraging some of the classical AI methods that require less compute when it's appropriate to the task. And we'll talk a bit more about that later as well. Again, I hope everyone will learn that there's more to AI than Gen AI alone, and that comes down to this sort of AI literacy and the general education that needs to happen around some of those terms. I've been working with classical AI with data scientists, very fortunate over the years to have worked on products that leverage some of those techniques that have actually been around for a very long time, but are entering the spotlight now and really starting to deliver some value. So really exciting time for us, but there is still a lot to learn in terms of the terminology and the capabilities. And that really sort of leads on to the final one of sort of continuous learning, that this will need to be a key theme for everybody, certainly for the next year and beyond. I'll hand over to Bora now to go through some of those key terms, just to set the scene really and level set so that we can continue talking about some of the capabilities and use cases. Over to you, Bora.
Thanks, Rowena. So AI literacy is going to be cornerstone for effective AI governance, and it probably starts from understanding these core concepts as they have been used interchangeably around the sector in the past. So we just wanted to clarify by going into a bit more detail on their differences. So starting from artificial intelligence, it's the broadest term of all, and it involves any system that demonstrate some form of intelligence in carrying out tasks that were traditionally performed by humans. So you can think of a cleaning robot at home, which doesn't generate content or learn extensively, or at least I genuinely hope yours are not learning or generating content for you, but ultimately it has a level of intelligence to autonomously clean your floors. So that's what we are talking about in terms of intelligence, whereas machine learning is a subset of AI, and it focuses on systems that learn from data to make predictions or decisions without explicit programming. So this approach powers many AI systems we use today, such as recommendation engines in Amazon Marketplace and etc. And multiple machine learning models coming together actually forms AI. And then we have generative AI, which is a hot topic, of course, and it is actually a subset of machine learning. And models such as ChatGPT are capable of creating new content, text, images, or even code. And based on the patterns they learned from training data, is what they are doing in general. And while it can seem intelligent to the users, it's actually driven by learned patterns so that they are not actually independent thoughts by these models. It's certainly a groundbreaking area, but it's important to note that not all AI is generative AI, and many impactful AI solutions, such as predictive analytics or automation tools, don't involve any generative capabilities. So the distinction is really important between Gen AI, and AI is a mixture of wide range of tools and approaches, and understanding where each method fits ensures the solutions are addressing real-world problems effectively. Generative AI, on the other hand, is very exciting, but focusing on using the right type is crucial for success. On this slide, we are talking about the usefulness of generative AI and where it is powerful. So there's significant hype around generative AI, but following examples are where it excels most. All the training for large language models have been text-based, therefore generative AI is particularly very strong for text-based tasks. For example, it's excellent at types of writing tasks, so from a couple of sentences it can generate you full content. Similarly, it's highly effective at the reverse, so summarization, so taking lengthy documents and distilling them into clear, concise bullet points or summaries. Another strong use case is translation. Of course, it may not match the precision of professional translation services, but it's a reliable tool for general purpose, quick translation tasks, and to give the idea in general. And then we have information retrieval, which involves extracting specific clauses from the text, like pulling clauses from contracts. And we have invoke APIs, which is the most technical one among all. And it takes generative AI into the realm of agentic AI, which you might have heard, where the system can execute tasks on its own. So for example, you could ask it to schedule a meeting in the chat, and it would not only understand your request, but also book the meeting directly in your calendar and provide you a confirmation afterwards. So saying these, at the same time, these are where generative AI is very strong, but it has limitations. For example, it isn't yet particularly suited for areas like complex math calculations, where benchmark testing shows that the performance of different models are not there yet, but it's certainly an area of improvement. And there are so many more different areas that generative AI is worked on to improve the performance. So while advancement in these areas are ongoing, I would say that these 5 that you see in the screen will always be there consistently, and they will always be strong and reliable use cases in the future. So if you are not sure where to start, these can be excellent starting points for your generative AI journey. In terms of market, I think Rowena mentioned already that it's very fast-paced environment. So for broader perspective, perhaps it's faster than anything most of us have experienced in our lifetimes. Developments that feel cutting edge today might be outdated in 5-6 months' time, which already happened in the past year. And for instance, the recent launch of AI chatbot by Chinese company DeepSeek, you might have heard, caused such significant disruption that major AI and chip companies collectively lost nearly $1 trillion in value overnight. We won't go into the specifics of how and why this crash happened, but the key takeaway here is that the field is evolving so rapidly that even a single development can reshape the industry landscape almost instantly in one day. Similarly, large-scale initiatives such as $500 billion Stargate investment by US government in AI shows not only how much this field is advancing, but also the scale of resources being committed globally to fuel this innovation. So it's certainly an area under development and will stay like that in the future. Some other trends we've seen very recently are AI reasoning, which is essentially the technique of advanced chatbots performing internal reasoning by running multiple conversations in the background from your single conversation. So you don't see everything happening, but you just ask a single question and it thinks about it in the background and then gives you the response, which increases accuracy. We have agentic AI, which is already mentioned. So it's all about autonomous decision making and action by AI models. And we have multimodal AI, which is, as I said in the beginning, most of the generative AI has been text-based, but multimodal is expanding its reach to other media types such as video and audio as well, so that it understands video, audio, as well as it understands text and responds back in video and audio as well. So even though these advancements are happening, the field is changing very rapidly, and it's important to keep up to date, but also it's important to focus on the true use cases because they are the ones that truly add the value. Even AI professionals struggle to keep pace with every new advancement. And as legal professionals, don't feel discouraged if you haven't followed the latest trends. I would say by attending this presentation today, you're already taking a proactive step in staying up to date with the latest advancements in AI, and we are giving you everything in one session. But joking aside, existing AI technology, let alone the latest advancements, already offer immense potential, and leveraging them effectively can drive significant gains already, even if technology doesn't improve further. And adoption challenges and ways of working changes and managing these are probably bigger challenges than applying ultimate latest AI models for your workflows.
Thanks, Bora. And in an attempt to give you everything you need to know, as Bora has now committed us to, we're going to hand over to Lee Kirkpatrick, who is going to give a perspective on a reasonably mature initiative at NatWest in terms of their journey around AI. I think you'll see from Lee's account, they are very far along on their journey, and they're a really good example of an organization that has embraced AI from the early stages. So I'll hand over now to Natalie.
Hi, my name's Lee Kirkpatrick. I head up the outsourcing technology and IP team at NatWest. The team that I'm in does a lot of GenAI advisory work, and we spend quite a lot of our time negotiating GenAI contracts. So over the last 2 years or so, we've had quite a chunky GenAI roadmap, which has partially been about upskilling the team, but has also been about actually experimenting with the technology so that we've got a first-hand sense of what it does, what it doesn't do, things that might go wrong. And when we've been doing that experimentation piece within the team, we've been looking at things like Copilot from a productivity perspective, and some of the other kind of GenAI productivity tools that are out there. But we've also been partnering with IBM to actually build something that's specifically looking at how do we use GenAI to actually improve kind of pure legal tasks. Which was something that we wanted to kick the tires on during the course of last year, certainly. So in terms of return on investment, there probably hasn't been any ROI, but that was very much in line with our expectations. So what we were really looking to do, particularly with the IBM partnership, was to learn and really understand what things GenAI could meaningfully help us with, and then what areas actually perhaps wasn't the best use case or was perhaps a little bit ambitious in terms of where GenAI currently is. So just in terms of the learnings from what we've done so far in the GenAI experimentation space, in terms of the pilot that we ran with IBM, that was a really successful collaboration with IBM and also with our technology team within the bank. And I think one of the things that I would say in terms of the kind of buy build debate is that we heavily leveraged our internal technology team, and we really couldn't have done it without them, because there was an awful lot of complexity in terms of building our own solution, and actually quite a large investment in time from our team, because it was one of the first GenAI products that IBM had built in the legal space. So there was an awful lot of knowledge and information and kind of golden sources and playbooks and all of that kind of stuff that we had to share with IBM. So it was definitely worth it from a learning perspective, but the time investment was definitely quite a big factor in that project. And in terms of those learnings, I definitely think that partnering with a technology company is really helpful, because they've got all of this capability, different foundation models that certainly for the Watson X product IBM can pull in, and actually just having that kind of technical expertise and a company that's very much at the kind of top of that game was invaluable to us. I think more broadly, one of the biggest learnings for us is that the more that you're playing about with the GenAI tools that are kind of relatively openly available or might be available within your companies, the better, because then you've just got a much better sense of what they can actually do, and you're obviously building up confidence in using them. And one of the things that's on our roadmap for this year is, I think we've explored the productivity piece. So how can GenAI help the team be more productive? We haven't seen huge gains in that, because there's probably not a huge amount of admin that the team's doing as it is, and therefore it's very kind of marginal, the gains that we're getting from some of those productivity tools. And so one of the things that we do want to explore is more the concept of kind of another voice in the room. So how do we use GenAI to maybe give a different perspective, or take something that we've drafted and say, pretend that you're a customer or a stakeholder, what questions might you have about this? Or how do we make this a little bit more interesting or engaging or a little simpler? So that kind of concept of almost using it as another team member, another voice in the room, is something that we're keen to explore this year. The two tips I would have is to get your culture right, which I'll expand on in a second. And the second is experiment, but focused experimentation is the key. So in terms of the culture, I am in a superbly kind of fortunate position where the team that I work in is like very much built on this concept of being progressive and trying to work out new ways of doing things and bringing different ideas to the table. So we're absolutely set up for experimentation. And I think we view the change that GenAI is presenting as a real opportunity, rather than something that we are intimidated by or worrying about. And so I think getting your culture right, having that tone from the top, maybe starting with some kind of micro experiments where you're playing about with GenAI in your like personal time, not using work materials, just to kind of get used to it and engage with it positively. So that's the first thing. Absolutely, culture is key. The second thing, which is very much the approach that we've taken, is to kind of go quite wide in terms of experimenting, and doing so pretty cheaply. So we're using a lot of tools, as I say, to kind of play about with it outside of the workspace. And then we're also leveraging capability within the bank. So we haven't had to invest a huge amount of time at all. But what we have done is we've been very clear about what outcomes we're wanting from these experiments, and actually being quite clever about gathering that data, so that we're not only working out what is Copilot really good at in the team, but also what can't it do. And then we're building up a really good picture of what the kind of missing pieces of the jigsaw might be that a legal specific tool might be able to deliver.
Great. So really, really good to hear Lee's perspective there at NatWest, and tons in there I appreciate in terms of some tips and some perspectives in terms of that relationship with technology providers, we're fortunate to have Bora and his team of data scientists within our organisation that help us to evaluate the best options for us in terms of buy, build, or partner for the solutions that we're looking for. I'm going to hand over to Bora now to talk through some of those considerations.
Thanks, Rowena. So yeah, in terms of evaluating products, and especially thinking of buy, build, or partner, which is a challenge almost all companies are probably facing. And we'll use chatbot in this case as just as an example product category, but principles of how to assess buy versus build or partner broadly apply across other types of technology as well. So we have actually two main categories, and also going back to chatbot example, we have put out-of-the-box solutions such as ChatGPT, MS Copilot, and these are ready-to-buy products. So they are easily accessible. They are designed to support generic process and capabilities, and they work best for non-critical, non-operational tasks, especially so for free versions, ad hoc or one-off reviews, and generic applications of generative AI. So since they are very much user-friendly and require minimal infrastructure and technical expertise, these are significant positives for out-of-the-box solutions because you can start working on them from day one. However, there are still some limitations and considerations which are quite important to consider. Firstly, even though they are very much user-friendly, you still need training and awareness, and that's essential to understand limitations and ensure effective use of these products. There are significant data privacy considerations, such as free solutions would come with the caveat that they often use your data for training purposes, and obviously that would make them unsuitable for sensitive data. And free trials, on the other hand, are likely free because they want to gather your feedback for product improvement, which actually raises some IP concerns. So even with paid versions of these out-of-the-box solutions, your data might be hosted externally outside of your own environment, and that can pose potential security risk as well. In addition to that, since it is externally hosted, you would have less control over underlying processes, results, and data security and management. So these are all important considerations for out-of-the-box solutions, but just reminding the upside again, they require just small effort from the tech side in terms of deploying and maintaining. So a lot of users can test and experiment with these tools for various use cases. On the other hand, we have bespoke enterprise GenAI solutions. These would be built or partner if you don't have technical skills option. So these solutions usually engineered as production-grade systems tailored to specific business needs, and you would still have a user-friendly interface, but bespoke solutions would offer much greater control, precision, and customization. And ultimately, as an organization, you are in charge of everything happening on the platform. So it is ideal, especially for handling sensitive legal documents with absolute accuracy, advanced legal specific use cases beyond just generic use cases, automating complex processes, and also if you want to integrate AI with your other systems that are already in place, then you might want to go for bespoke GenAI solution option. In terms of some negatives, obviously that comes with investment in infrastructure and cloud capabilities. But on the positive side, while you make these investments, you have more advanced data security because the solution will be hosted in a secure environment. You have much more flexibility in terms of customizability, so you can tailor it for your business-specific needs, and you can get high-quality outcomes, and it will enable you to control and deliver high return on investment as well. So if you were to ask what we do as Dantons, this is what we take as an approach as well. So we make an assessment, but we also have a solutions development team specializing in creating bespoke legal solutions and secure and in-house. And we assess out-of-the-box solutions. And when out-of-the-box products are not good enough for our needs or for our clients' needs, then we develop bespoke solutions for all the reasons discussed, such as greater security, higher quality outputs, and ability to address specific needs and unlocking efficiencies. So thinking of the decision between buy, build versus partner, I think it really depends on the use case and what's going to be acceptable for your use case. For simpler, more generic tasks or for experimentation purposes, out-of-the-box solutions usually are very good for that purpose, and especially paid out-of-the-box solutions. But for processes requiring higher automation, higher precision, through automation, significant efficiency gains, that or handling sensitive data, then bespoke solutions generally may provide more tailored and effective, maybe a more effective approach in the long run. So beyond just the develop, buy, build versus and partner, I think there are also key AI governance principles that are highlighted in this slide. So whether it's third-party product or developed in-house, these principles are key to apply for all the solutions. While in-house solutions would pose smaller risk due to data residency controls and being more in control, these principles are essential for safe and compliant product onboarding overall. Across the legal sector, we've seen how neglecting some of these principles have led to significant challenges. So it is really important to adhere to these principles so that you don't have intellectual property issues, data breaches, or regulatory violations. So I won't go into the great amount of detail for each of them, but I'll try to give a snapshot of each. And obviously, the details can be shared later. So when evaluating products, it starts from hosting and processing infrastructure. So this is about ensuring data localization requirements are there, and also verifying that backup recovery and all these failover systems are in place to ensure continuity. You would also need to think about vendor lock-in and flexibility of architecture for future changes if you want to suddenly change something. The data privacy and security is closely tied with hosting. So if it's not hosted in your platform, obviously you would have questions about data privacy and security. So you need to know how your data is used, how usage data is used, stored, where it is stored, how it's going to be collected, and how it's going to be utilized, ensuring compliance with GDPR principles. And obviously, one needs to pay special attention for sensitive data, as that's a common concern with third-party tools, how they are stored. AI model transparency and bias is ideally done by AI specialists. So this is all about understanding how the models work, and you need confidence in how they function in general, so that you can be sure of the output that these models are generating. With generative AI, this is a greater task because they are not transparent by design. But at the very least, you should know where each of these models are applied, and it should be well documented. And technical AI processes should be regularly monitored for fairness, bias, and all these aspects, so that there aren't any mistakes in generation. From vendor risk steering, vendor assessment point of view, we apply a principle that we go for risk-based approach. For example, for smaller vendors, we focus on their financial stability as well as following best practices in terms of data management, for example. Whereas for larger vendors, we focus on how quickly they can change their product roadmap based on our feedbacks and flexibility of the product. We have ethical and regulatory compliance and contractual terms, which ultimately is, in terms of contractual terms, it's all about data ownership, data retention policies, and who owns the data and intellectual property. Whereas ethical and regulatory compliance is becoming more and more important because of emerging frameworks such as EU AI Act and etc. And it's certainly going to be upcoming. There will be probably there is likely to be more upcoming regulations in the horizon. So this might overall sound too much as legal professionals to do. So I'm sure some of you do, by the way, but you may not have all the technical skills needed to evaluate the products from all these aspects. So even sometimes IT teams don't have the specialized expertise required for AI-specific products to understand AI-specific details. That's why it's essential to collaborate with experts in the field, whether it is internal or external, and it takes a blend of legal, technical, and regulatory knowledge to manage these risks effectively. And this leads us perfectly to the next slide. So back to you, Rowena.
Thanks very much, Bora. I won't spend too long on this one, conscious of time, but really key in terms of the roles involved in all of this, as Bora has mentioned, and as we heard from Lee as well, in terms of the multidisciplinary teams that are required to deliver on all of this. It's a really important consideration in terms of your roadmap, and something to factor in early if you are at the early stages, in terms of what do you need, what do you already have across your business. Even if you haven't got it within your legal function, it may be that you've got, for instance, process and CI specialists elsewhere in the business who could help support with some of the change management work that needs to be done in respect of considering where AI fits into your existing tech stack and your processes and workflows. So really is a combination of all of these roles. And as Bora said, for some of you with smaller teams, it may mean partnering with providers externally to supplement those areas where you need them. But critical in all of this is those individuals who really understand AI, and data scientists are in high demand on that basis in the current climate.
To give my take on AI and how we've used it and the advantages it's provided to us on our transactions, we're working on a sell-side M&A deal. It's reasonably early stages. We've got a data room, several thousand documents spread across a number of different assets. Different functions are needed on the BP side. And just to get the comfort that we can make all of that material available to our shortlisted bidders, that we are checking for confidentiality, we're checking for change of control, we're getting comfortable as to what security we're going to need to replace at the point of closing. There's a huge amount there needs to be worked through. It's not suitable for all transactions, but on the ones where it is, yes, I would advocate using it again. And I think the work product that we've got out of there is useful, and regardless of things like cost, it probably presents an advantage over a more traditional model. Things like its ability to work in PDF documents, its ability to work in languages other than English. There are certain elements of due diligence, especially sell side, which are inevitably painful, and this presents an alternative too.
So interesting to hear there. That was a specific example of a due diligence exercise within that total recall, as we call it, use case, using the AI products to review large sets of documents, and we have those sorts of exercises across transactional areas and obviously litigation as well. So really interesting to hear that sort of perspective of using an out-of-the-box product, and whether or not Daniel would use it again. Elsa gives a slightly different perspective, so we'll hear from her and then talk a little bit more about the use cases.
I'm Ailsa Longmuir. I'm the General Counsel for Centrica Energy, and I look after the legal, ethics and compliance and regulatory affairs teams for the business unit. My team supports Centrica Energy, which is the trading arm of Centrica PLC. So as a trading business, naturally, we're very tech dependent, but then it also means that we are well equipped to move into the AI world at quite a good pace. I will be honest and say that legal has somewhat lagged behind in this space historically, but this year I'm definitely noticing a seismic shift in the way that me and my team view the possibilities that digitalization and AI hold. So we're reaching a stage at which we do have to be quite agile to support what is quite an aggressive growth agenda. And to do that, we need the right tools and framework in place to support the high value work that we advise the business on. So the use of AI and legal tech is really on the critical path to success for me and the team. If I use an example, my team covers the drafting of ISDA contracts across our legal entities. So these are framework contracts for OTC power and gas trades. So whilst this is a standard contract, there is scope for up to 80 clause variances. And as a digitalisation initiative, my team are building a generic drafting tool where a master contract can be uploaded and then variable clauses pre-populated and managed independently. So hopefully this new process will cut down many of the hours in the drafting process and also ultimately reduce the operational risk involved in maintaining multiple documents. On the document reviewing front, we are trialling a new tool which has the ability to compare up to 5 files at once and critically across mixed formats. So we can compare a Word version versus an Excel spreadsheet versus a PDF, and we're able to track all of the differences between these formats. And these features aren't out of the box within Microsoft 365. So within the review process, we do have to have the flexibility to easily compare variable file formats. I think the challenges that we face are basically the volume of certain contracts that we do versus the complexity of others. So we have to approach each with the right mindset. So in the world of trading, the contractual framework in which we operate is quite vast and quite varied. On the one hand, for commodities like gas and power, we have standard term framework agreements like ISDAs and EFETs, which are based on a set of industry-wide adopted terms and conditions to which each party can elect variable options. On the other hand, in our LNG and shipping business, the sales agreements are extremely bespoke and highly negotiated. And what this means is that we need to flex our approach from what we need from AI and legal tech to each commercial pillar of the business that we support. In terms of priorities for 2024, I'm very focused on how we set ourselves up for success in this area. And this means that ultimately some good housekeeping and fundamental groundwork needs to be done in terms of basic contract and document management so that the new world of AI can operate as effectively as possible alongside our existing systems and software. I'm really keen for the team to utilise Microsoft Copilot to save time on certain tasks. In particular, summarising and minute-taking are really quick wins that make an instant difference to reducing workload. I also started the year wanting to what I perceived to be and assumed to be my team's reaction towards digitalisation and AI generally. But I was actually really surprised, pleasantly surprised, and stood very much corrected. And when we had a really fantastic interactive session with Avanade back in January, and my team showed real enthusiasm for the new world. So that fills me really with full of hope.
So some really good perspectives again there from some of your peers. In terms of those points there that Elsa was making, really critical to think about what the needs are of your particular team and also the legacy tech stack that you're working with. So not all of these applications will integrate effectively. You need to be thinking about these things holistically. And one way that we've found is helpful to do that is to define work streams which are relevant to us. So these themes that you can see here on the screen are actually themes that I've worked with in the last 20 years and have been reasonably consistent in terms of capability. And I think this really helps when you're looking at products, rather than thinking product first and trying to fit that to your processes, thinking about your capabilities within these work streams and then thinking about what the other products are that live in those categories and how your people are using them before you start trying to integrate the AI. And as Elsa mentioned, there are some really critical points around, for instance, sort of hygiene in terms of document automation and getting your documents in order and your data management practices up to scratch. So some really important points to make there, that this is not all about AI. This is about AI in the round and in the context of your particular organization and the technology that you have already. So we're going to wrap up with a quick checklist, which just covers some of the themes from today. And of course, we'll share this afterwards as well. Just some key points. So where are you on that maturity scale, and also where do you want to be? That's not going to be the same for everybody depending on your organization and industry and sector. Ensure that you've got that regular access to the resources that you need, and again those will differ depending on what your goals are in terms of AI. In terms of AI literacy, that's something that is going to become even more important with the regulations that are coming in. So really critical to ensure that you've got access to the resources that you need to make that happen within your organisation, whether or not that's your responsibility in your legal function or not, something to keep on your radar. It could be one person or a group of people who have responsibility for keeping up to date. But as we've seen, today there are changes that happen overnight that can disrupt the way in which we approach things. So really important to have somebody keeping track and trying to cut through the noise. And there are plenty of resources out there and really reliable resources too, so that you can navigate some of that market noise that we hear. And then offering a safe and controlled environment. So whether that's a generative AI chatbot or another way of making sure that your people have access to experiment and get familiar with these tools. And of course, that sort of fits into that AI literacy piece as well. In terms of evaluating products, we've heard from Bora some really important considerations around that in terms of the practicalities and thinking about what the needs are for your organisation, blending the right expertise, whether that's seeking support from elsewhere in your organisation or externally, but making sure that you've got the people who really understand how these products work in the discussions around whether or not you should apply them to certain use cases. Targeting those high value use cases. We've shared some of ours today, but no doubt you'll have your own and maybe versions of the same, focusing on capabilities rather than products. So fitting the products to your needs rather than the other way around. And then of course, doing all of that in a safe and secure way, which, for many of you will already have governance in place, but to think about that in terms of the design right from the beginning so that you don't come unstuck when these regulations come to bite.
Thanks, Rowena. So I'm going to give you a little break. We've lots of people commenting and getting involved in the chat. So before we ask you to maybe give some take on what people have been reflecting on as we went through that session, we're going to switch up the focus slightly now. Obviously, today's session has been focused on AI in the context of your in-house legal function. We are keen to get your view beyond that and continue to support you as you look at AI adoption across your organisation. So again, we have 2 questions for you. So in thinking about AI related legal risk across your organisation, what are your biggest concerns right now as you look ahead to 2025? And we have a number of options. We are asking you to pick the one that's probably top of your agenda. And then the second question is a governance framework question. We're keen to get a better sense of where you are at from an organisational perspective when it comes to your AI governance framework. So again, it's lovely to see lots of people getting involved. We will, of course, share the results shortly back with you all. I'm actually going to do that while Rowena, I'm going to hand back for a second to Rowena to pick up on some of the comments, and then we'll just pop up the results as you're doing that, Rowena, before we go to close.
Sure, I'm just going to whiz through. There's tons in here, but a really important point about the Horizon Scanner in particular in terms of scraping resources. Obviously, that has to be done very carefully, and you have to be alive to licensing and so on. That is part of the exercise that's done in the scoping phase for those solutions. But as Bora has said in the chat as well, it's something that you also have to keep up to date with, because those licensing agreements may change over time. Privilege and confidential information, really complex areas. But again, this is where understanding the data flows and understanding data storage and all of that hygiene is really critical to making a decision on whether or not a product is suitable for you. In terms of analysis of bespoke contracts, that's precisely the reason why we have the intelligent playbooks workstream, because we found that some of the off-the-shelf tools work very well with generic contracts but not bespoke, and our clients tend to need something more bespoke, and so that's why we're developing something ourselves in-house, as well as evaluating the market. Recommendations for products that speed up rollout of standard documents, that's probably a topic for an entire session on its own. So I think we'll pick that one up afterwards, if that's okay. I'm conscious we've got 2 minutes left. This feels like some sort of game show scenario. Legal AI in-house teams currently using simple contract review. Yeah, so there are products out there that do the sort of simple, straightforward stuff, some of it reasonably well. Depends on your needs. And again, that will, really be quite varied across the different organizations that we have represented today. So important to evaluate the products based on what it is that you're trying to do, and not every contract is the same. I don't need to say that in this environment, but it is quite stark when you look at different products as to how they respond to those use cases. Some conversation around Copilot. Yeah, there are limitations, and Bora has given a little bit of insight into that in the example that we gave around the comparison of products. Good for some generic use cases, but it's not going to be the right tool for everything that we're trying to achieve in terms of those focused use cases that are really going to move the needle for your organization. So again, it is about having that focus on what's important to you, and then considering the products in light of that, evaluating capability and also security.
Thanks, Rowena. For anyone we didn't get to on the chat, we will follow up directly. And I think that's it. We're running out of time. We could stay on for quite a while yet on this topic, but I'm going to hand you back to Natalie to close the session for us.
Just want to say a huge thank you to our speakers, Bora and Rowena. I know a lot of time goes into preparing for and presenting these sessions. I think it was very insightful and very practical, so thanks for that. And then a huge thank you to our audience. Thank you for giving us your time and your participation in the polls. It's always very interesting to get your perspectives. We would love your feedback. So you can either pop it in the chat or send us an email directly. The email address is on your screen. And then lastly, we have 2 more sessions on our client experience program coming up. The first one, 13th of February, on global cybersecurity legal risk essentials. And then a month later, on the 13th of March, being an effective change leader. So we would really like you to attend those. The link to register is on the screen, or you can just pop us an email on that email address. Bye for now.